Hi, it's Adam from Supermoto Clowns here at Cycle House Performance. We're going to continue doing some fork seals. If you haven't seen part 1, that's the disassembly. This is going to be the reassembly video. And thanks again for Justin for letting us do this video on his 2015 Drz400 Supermoto. Alright, let's get to reassembling this thing. Make sure you have all your ducks in a row, everything's cleaned. I used Maxima suspension clean like I mentioned in the other video. We're going to start with putting the fork tubes together and getting some seals done. I used PivotWorks fork seals for this. I haven't had the best luck with all balls in the past, but some people have. I start off by using one of the bags that the fork seal came in, put over the end of that fork tube so those seals don't get tore up on the way on. If you don't do that, they will tear. Get some fork oil that you're going to use. Make sure everything's nice and lubricated. Definitely want those seals to go on easy. Do not want them tearing. Start with the dust seal. You're going to feel like you're putting them on upside down, but they're upside down forks, so it'll make sense when it goes together. Get that dust seal on there. Then get your clip. Put that on next. Then your main oil seal. Make sure that's lubricated. That's the most important part. Slide that thing right over. Once you get that on, you can take that little baggie and pitch it. You will not be needing that anymore. Then there's a washer. There's a sharp side and a dull side. You want the dull side to go towards the seal. Then you get your slider bushing. Throw that sucker on there. And then your inner fork bushing. Get that thing to clip into the slot. Now, I used a 48mm Motion Pro fork seal driver. I know it's not the right size, but that is the only one I had at the shop. So start off by putting the tubes together, put the slider bushing in and the washer. Smack, smack, make sure all that's in there. You'll feel when they've hit home, they make a completely different sound. Next step, you're going to want to slide that oil seal, that main oil seal down. Same thing like with the slider bushing and washer. Slide hammer that in there with the fork seal driver. Once again, you'll hear the sound change whenever the seal is completely seated. And slide your clip down, get your tiny little screwdriver and pop that thing in there. Make sure it snaps all the way down. Should hear a positive click going all the way around. Boom, there she is, and all the way. And then the dust seal, I just use the forks. Man, there she sits, all nice and together. Wipe everything off, so you use a whole bunch of that fork fluid to lubricate everything. That's pretty much for assembling the inner and outer fork tubes. Now we get on to our damper rod. Alright, extend the damper rod. And I use these fancy little Park Tools holding stand. Come in very handy. They're pretty expensive and most shops have them, so I don't expect anyone doing this in their garage to really have that. A modified bench vise usually works just as well. Now for the inner fork oil capacity, it's going to be 182 milliliters. That's 182. Get yourself a graduated cylinder, a ratio right, something. Get as close as you can to 182. Now make sure when you're pouring in to watch out, because that damper rod up there has 2 holes on the side for bleeds. If you just go start pouring it in there, it's going to come out those sides and just make a mess. And I usually go until it starts dripping out of the cylinder. That's just a universal thing, since you're never going to get all the fluid out of that cylinder anyway. Now we're going to have to bleed the damper rod just a little bit. First stroke's going to be noticeable if there's no fluid, but then once it starts sucking all in there, you're going to have a nice easy stream going through there. Pump it 3, 4, 5 times to whenever it feels even all the way through, and do not push that rod all the way up into the rest of the damper rod, or you're gonna have to start all over. It'll push too much fluid out. So 2-3 inches at the very bottom. Make sure you're extending it all the way out. Once it's bled, it's time to put in the compression stack for the inner chamber. This can be troublesome at points. This is where having 2 people might help. I luckily have that fancy fork vise to help me hold it together when I try and catch a thread. This kind of sucks. This is where most people struggle because you have to put a whole bunch of tension down and rotate it. It ended up taking me 3 or 4 tries. Ended up walking all the way around the fork vise to finally actually get it to catch, which I don't believe it even caught. Nope. I think right here I managed to get it. And then you can get your Motion Pro Showa slot tool for the inner chamber. You can crank that thing down. Those have a 1/2 inch drive at the top, so you can grab yourself a ratchet and snug that on down. Now you don't have to murder them, but you do want them tight. And there's Jerry, my boss, over here at Cycle House Performance, located out of St. Louis, Missouri. Like our Facebook page, give us a like, give us a share. We would greatly appreciate that. Alright, now it's time to check the damper rod. You want to push in 4 or 5 inches and you want to extend and stop. Notice how it extends fast and then stops. Do not push that rod all the way into the damper rod, or you're going to have to take it all apart and start over. Alright, now the last time I said that spring seat washer has a lip on it, you'll see it once you get it apart. It only really fits in kind of one way. And slide the spring stop plastic bumper towards the spring, obviously. Important part, make sure this jam nut is tightened all the way down, finger tight, down to that damper rod. Slide your spring back over. Do not forget your adjuster rod. It's a common thing to forget, and it sucks because you have to take your whole fork back apart to do that. Drop that sucker on in there, then grab your rebound adjuster. Oh no, never mind, not yet. We're going to slide the fork tubes onto it. And then we are going to use that fancy cutout tool. Yep, there we go, for holding the damper rod. It's kind of easier on the floor, put all your body weight on it. Get that thing clipped underneath the damper rod so we can tighten down the rebound adjuster. Now you used a 21 for the outer and a 17 for the jam nut. You want to hold the jam nut where it's at, and then you want to tighten the rebound adjuster, and they'll suck themselves together. It's very important to do it just like that. Now you don't have to murder the torque on these, just get them snug. I know there's some torque cores out there, tight is tight, damn it. Now remove your damper rod holding tool, slide that rebound clicker in the fork tube. Now don't grab your impact right off the bat, grab a 21mm socket on a ratchet and get those threads started. You really don't want to jack those threads up. They're super fine and super easy to mess up. Snug it down with a socket and ratchet first, and then you can put on your impact. Tap it once or twice, make sure it's tight. Again, tight is tight. Not really worried about torque on that kind of stuff. I know there's a torque spec out there, but not too concerned. Alrighty, now for the outer fork. Specs 350 milliliters. Looks like I was short. Grab another bottle. I use Maxima 5-weight fork oil. Bel-Ray is good too. Race Tech stuff's good. It's about the only stuff I use. send it up there to 350. And pour it in the fork tube. Might have to angle the fork tube a little bit to the side. Don't pour all the fluid in there right off the bat. Sometimes it needs a chance to bubble its way down to the bottom. You don't want to overflow all over your fork tube. Shake it, persuade it, whatever you need to. Slide it up just a bit like I did. And again, pour until the fork fluid stream goes from a stream to just dripping. Because again, you're not going to get all that fork fluid out of there. And then slide that fork tube up. Grab your 50mm Motion Pro cap wrench tool. Snug that all together. And then once you have it on the bike, you can put that on there and correctly snug it down, because it should be more than just hand tight, obviously. Clean everything off. Make sure you got as much of that fork fluid off as possible. And give the fork a good test. Don't be afraid to bounce up and down like hell on it. You want to make sure those things aren't leaking. Oh, just forgot before I did that. Make sure you set all your clickers back to whatever the person had them set to before. Like I said in the other video, Justin had 12 on the compression adjuster, and he had 17 on the rebound adjuster. I don't know what the book spec is. That's what he was running before. That's what was working for him, so that's what I put him back to.
Say what? Injected. We might.
So you can even go from 50 horsepower to 51?
Yours only went from 50 horsepower to...
Mine went from 50 and then Jerry got it to me and it was 89 when it was done.
Alright, now give that fork a good test. Don't be afraid to bounce up and down on it. You want to make sure that seal ain't leaking. And boom. Not even a ring around it. Good day. Alright, thank you very much, guys. Alright, gentlemen. Hope everyone on DRZ Life No BS can get some use out of these videos. If I was vague, hit me up on a Facebook message and I'll see if there's anything I can do for you. Thank you for letting me stay on the page even though I ride a god-awful KTM. They're terribly unreliable. I'm just kidding. Thank you very much, guys. Hope you enjoy.